Right, this is one of the videos in the Train the Trainer series of getting the plus out of zipForm Plus. And this video will cover forms and features. So it's just some of the special things that you can do on forms that people aren't aware of, and some of the special features that we're going to be utilizing during class so that people can really get the most out of the system. So I want to start off by showing how to pull in information on a property and the property owner. And this really works best on the listing side because this feature works best when starting a new transaction. So typically with a buyer, you start a new transaction before they've identified the property that they want to purchase. So this feature works best when you already know what property that you're dealing with. That's why in the class, I encourage everyone to create a listing template, and we're going to show features during the class via the listing side instead of the buyer side so that we can show this feature. This has been kind of an aha moment for a lot of people. They've enjoyed seeing this feature. So the first feature I'm going to talk about is actually not in zipForms. It's RPR. So I've opened up abor.com and then I went to access the MLS. And the MLS portal is the first screen that you see when you log in. And this portal has the icon to access RPR right here. I do ask before I start this portion of class, how many people here use RPR? It's very typical that only about a third of the class is using RPR, but you're going to encourage them to come to an RPR class, of course, so there's a great follow-up class to this. I do say, well, this is not an RPR class. However, I want to show you one of the reasons why you should learn how to use RPR, and that's to use some of these special features. So I'm going to go ahead and open RPR. And the system is going to open my screen already logged in. It's a single sign-on. I tell people in class, if you have never logged into RPR before, you don't know your login and it's not opening already logged in on your screen, just watch for this portion and make a note to learn more about RPR, okay? So where I'm going to go first is I do show people here in the settings option at the top right-hand side of the screen that this is where they can connect to RPR. So I tell them go into your settings, top right-hand side, and I want you to scroll down until you see the icon for the tablet and cell phone. Your option to link to zipForms is right above that mobile access, right above the image for the tablet and cell phone, okay? So this is where they'll link to their account. I don't unlink it to show them anything because it's just literally a link there that says link accounts. So you don't need to unlink yours to show this during class. Just point out where they go, okay? After that, I'm going to go to the home screen, and I'm not giving them time to log in. I'm not giving them time to do really much of anything in this system. I just want to show them and encourage them to go to the RPR class. So I'm going to go here at the top, to the top of my screen, to the home screen, okay? You do want to point out that when they're performing the search, they want to change over to all properties because we are looking at listing a property. So the property is not currently for sale. So change over to all properties. Ask them to use their own address or an address that they know, okay? And have them type in the address. They do need to type the full address with city, state, and zip. And you will click the option to search. Okay. After clicking the search option, the next screen that you'll see has the button for the zipForm transaction right here in the middle of the screen. So they're just looking for the row of stars. Just to the right of the row of stars is where you can start your new transaction. We're not going over anything else in RPR. We're not going over the summary page, nothing, okay? So this is it. We're going to show them click the zipForm transaction button. Okay, on the next screen, you'll have an option to start a new zipForm transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start a New zipForm Transaction. Then I will select what type of transaction are we creating. It's a listing. And then click OK. My zipForm transaction is now started, so I want to go ahead and go to zipForms. So click Go to zipForm. And this is going to open your zipForm screen in the summary screen. So we'll be looking at the property summary screen. It always jumps you down a bit, but here we are. Here's the property summary screen, and we are now ready to start our transaction. Okay, so we're in the transaction right now. All we need to do is go over to the documents. So this is where people are going to be like, I love this. I'm going to use this all the time, because notice here how it pulls all of the information. It pulls your legal description. It separates your lot and block, parcel numbers, pulls everything in. Really nice. Okay. So from here, we're going to go straight to our documents. I tell them, don't bother looking at parties. Let's go straight to documents. And in the documents screen, the button is right below documents, apply template. Because they will get here and they'll say, oh, but we just created templates. Where are my templates? Okay, why didn't it pull over all the pages? Okay, so right here underneath documents, we're going to click apply template. Select the appropriate template and click apply. And that's going to pull over all of the documents. Okay, so we'll give it just a second to pull those documents over. All right, so now my template has been successfully applied, and we're going to go straight to the cover page or cover sheet. This is the first document in the templates that I list for adding to your templates, and I want it in every single template that you create, because it's extremely handy to use. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the cover sheet. And what you're going to see is when you scroll down to the seller's information, some basic information for that seller has already been added. The system did put last name first and first name last, only because that's the way it was formatted on the tax record. So I'm going to click in this space, and this is where I can make any corrections that I want to make to the information. Okay, so I've made my correction. I'm going to add in phone numbers and some other information, because this will transfer over to the documents, okay? And there are spaces on the documents for phone numbers, email addresses, etc., okay? So let's go ahead and get that added. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to add seller 2 here. Okay, with an email address. Okay, and keep scrolling. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. You'll notice down here at the bottom of the next page, page 2, that all of the listing agent's information has already been added. That transferred over from the template. So love it, love it, love it. It's fun, so much fun to use this. So I'm going to scroll down further, and we have property information. Notice in the property information section that we have our list date, our expiration date, list price, etc. So as a user, you want to fill this out. You want to complete this information, because this will transfer over to the listing agreement. So I'm going to go ahead and select a list date. Do this in class. Show them how it really works. And my expiration date will be the same date next year. So I'm going to delete the 19, change it to 20. List price. We can do this 2 different ways. I can show that if I put a list price in this section here, it does transfer over to the listing agreement. But I know some agents who will actually put a text box for the client to complete the list price. So we're providing with this listing agreement also their CMA. So you can upload the CMA as a PDF, and send to them, here's a copy of resume, the pricing that we discussed, and they're going to select a price that falls within the range that you've provided them. So everybody works this a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and put in a price so you can see how it transfers over. Okay, and we will continue. Just pay attention to fields like, the HOA fields. You can put that information here. It does transfer over to the agreements, contracts, depending on what side you're working on. So offer date, offer expire date, all of this information is going to transfer over. Okay, so pay attention to it, use it, it's fantastic. We're not going to put anything in for the escrow or buyer's information. Okay, we're going to go right down here and point out the title information. So this is where in the template, we're going to say, hey, great section to use here. You can go ahead and put Independence Title as your preferred title company, as well as your preferred title officer's name. Okay, so really neat to use this. And once we've completed this form, we're going to go ahead and save. So up here at the top of the screen, I want you to save. Okay. After saving, we're going to go to the green back button at the top left-hand side of the screen. Make sure that everybody realizes they should not be using their browser back button. Okay, so let's go ahead and click back at the top left. And we're going to continue on with looking at some of the other documents that we're going to be sending for signature. So for class purposes, I send the IABS Consumer Protection Notice, the Seller's Disclosure Notice, and this is the Texas Realtors Seller's Disclosure Notice number 1406. And I'm going to send the exclusive right to sell. We're going to be leveraging off of this exclusive right to sell to show some of the other features of the documents and what you can do with them. But the seller's disclosure notice, real quick, I want to mention this. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I encourage the class to utilize the Texas Realtors seller's disclosure notice because this is the one that's fillable. Okay, it's fillable by the client when they receive it. It's super cool to see this in action. The students in class will need to add in seller 1 at bare minimum. They can do a seller 1 and 2 for example purposes if they'd like, but they won't be able to send this to themselves as the listing agent and see the text boxes added. Okay, so to see those boxes, you have to be sending it to a party listed as a seller. And that's why they want to put in maybe a fake seller or somebody on that cover sheet so they can really see these documents in action. But the ABOR seller's disclosure notice does not work the same way. It's not the fillable form. You do need to give the disclaimer of talk to your broker and use the seller's disclosure notice that your broker recommends, okay? So I'm going to go back one screen here at the top left, just clicking on that green back button again. And let's scroll down to the exclusive right to sell. Okay, so I'm going to click and open up the exclusive right to sell, and this is where we're going to go over some of the other fun features of the documents and zipForms. So here at the top of the screen, I'm just going to go over a few of these. We don't need to talk about every single one of them. I do like to mention the full screen because a lot of times people just say, I'm having a hard time seeing this. The font is so small, it's kind of hard to read. So here at the top of the screen, you can click full screen and it does make your document a lot larger. I've used this in teaching contract classes because sometimes from where they're sitting in the audience, it's hard for them to see, okay? And I can go back to normal. I'm gonna skip over to fast fill. Fast fill allows me to make sure that all of the fields are completed before doing an NA fill. Okay, so fast fill, what it does is it eliminates all of the wording from the document and only shows you fields that you need to complete. So I'm going to click fast fill, explain it first, then click on it. And now you can say, oh, look, there are some other fields that we need to complete. So we will go through the screens and make sure that everything's completed before doing an NA fill. After clicking Fast Fill, you click Viewer to view the document again. All right, NA fill. The NA fill gives you the option to add NA or the word none, whatever you want to type into this space, to apply that to any blank alpha fields. Okay, we'll talk about numeric fields in just a moment and how those work and how you can put 0 in a numeric field, but this will do NA in the blank fields. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to cancel out of that window. Okay, sticky notes are neat to use. On the sticky notes, I would use those more probably on the template side than on the transaction side. But the sticky note allows me to put notes on a document and just give myself a reminder of what to put in that field or something that I really need to pay attention to. Okay. I'm going to skip addenda for just a moment and come back to it. I'm going to skip right over to IntelliCopy. So IntelliCopy is interesting. What has been explained to me as far as how IntelliCopy works is IntelliCopy pulls over information into a document from another form. Okay, so it pulls information from one form to another. However, you can see that the system is already doing that because all of this information here at the top, that's information that I put on the cover sheet in the transaction. I didn't do that in the template. Okay, so it did pull from that cover sheet. However, what it did not pull are the seller's names. I'm not sure why it'll pull all of this information, but not the seller's names, but we're not gonna worry about it because we do have the IntelliCopy button. So watch this, when I click IntelliCopy, boom, it just pulled over more information from that cover sheet. So there's less that I need to fill in. Love the way it works. Notice we need to fill in the address, that's okay. I'm gonna keep scrolling so you can see some other items here, okay? So I'm gonna get down to the exclusion section. And in the exclusions, this is where the seller can note any items that are not going to convey with the sale of the property. Now they do have a section here at the top that talks about improvements and accessories and what would typically convey with the sale of their property. So I'm going to talk about two things here. We're going to talk about the addenda and highlights. So maybe I had a conversation with the seller already and we talked about some of the things that will be sold with the property. So I went over the listing agreement. We talked about accessories. We talked about improvements. And the seller said something like this. Oh, well, okay, you know the rose bush in our front yard. We love this rose bush. We got this rose bush as a anniversary gift. And we are going to be taking this rose bush with us. So yes, we're going to dig it up and take it with us. Well, that should be a red flag to you because notice here in improvements, the shrubbery and landscaping is part of the property. So if the seller wants to take their rose bush, they will need to dig it up as soon as possible, number one, and they will need to list it as an exclusion. So I want to draw this to their attention so I can highlight the section that talks about what is included in the property. The property also includes accessories and improvements, land accessories improvements. So I can highlight that, and then I can even go down here and highlight shrubbery and landscaping, just so they remember that rose bush needs to be mentioned in your exclusions, okay? So I'm going to scroll down to the exclusion section. So notice that the exclusions is in that same section, section 2, paragraph 2, 2D, okay? So in the exclusions, now they've talked further about their exclusions and we've realized, oh, okay, we have enough exclusions that we're going to need more space for all the exclusions. Maybe they've emailed it to me even, okay? And these two little lines are not going to be enough space to note all of their exclusions. So what I can do at this point is I can add an addenda. Okay, so this is not to be confused with addendums, which are forms that are provided by Texas Realtors, and that's an additional form that can be added. That's addendums. This is an addenda where I can add something like an Exhibit A, Exhibit B, etc. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the addenda section. I'm going to click Add Addendum. Okay, and then I'm going to explain how we can note the paragraph that this is related to. So we're talking about paragraph 2D, and this is going to be, we'll call it Exhibit A. And then they can type out, or I can copy and paste what they've sent to me, maybe in an email or whatever I've dictated over the phone, doesn't matter. I can type out that paragraph here. So add information here. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to add a clause. Okay. And we will insert that. Oh, except for this is going to be, it's residential, right? We are not inserting. Oh, sorry. I clicked add a clause. I meant to click save. I'll show you adding clauses later. I could have inserted a clause here too, but we're going to click save, sorry. And that's going to add that addenda to the second paragraph of this document. So you can see here the little arrow indicating that there's an addenda added. That will be added as a PDF in the end. Okay, so you'll see that as an additional document, a PDF. I can say in this exclusion section, see Exhibit A, okay, and that exhibit will be added. So I love the way this works. Lots of fun there showing this because very few people are aware of how that works. All right, so let's continue on, and I do actually want to show next inserting a clause. I accidentally showed that just a second ago, but let's scroll down real quick to our special provisions. So in the special provisions section, we talked earlier in a different video. So earlier in class, we would have explained clauses and how to create a clause. In this portion of class, we're showing how to insert that clause. So the example we gave earlier in class would have been how to create a clause for an easy out, seller's easy out and buyer's easy out. So if there's some indication that I might want to give an easy out for this client, where that would be inserted would be into your special provisions. And this would just state that with a breach of trust, either party can exit the agreement, so on and so on, okay? So I'm going to click in the special provisions section, and to insert a clause, you don't have to go up to the addenda section to do this, although you saw just a second ago that it does work from that screen. I just want to insert a clause directly into the special provisions. I don't want it as an added document. I'm going to click on the icon to edit special provisions. So I click on the pencil icon. Now I have the icon for clauses. And from the clauses, I can change my category and select the appropriate clause. After selecting the appropriate clause, I will click insert. Okay, so that's inserting a clause. Super cool to do. And also just remember to provide that disclaimer of all clauses should be approved by their brokers. All right, I'm going to scroll back up and I want to talk to you real quick about some of the numeric fields, and I'm going to use the compensation or cooperation with other brokers. This notes compensation to other agents. And I want to use this section to talk about the numeric fields because most agents who have worked with documents for a whole minute know that they can't put zeros a number 0 into a space, and because the system won't allow you to save it that way. So in this section, sometimes people will ask questions about the sub-agent portion, etc. You'll see on most listings in the MLS that the listing agent is not paying a sub-agent. You sometimes will get questions about, well, what exactly is a sub-agent? This is taught in pre-licensing. However, they're taught so much in pre-licensing that sometimes we forget what some of the terminology means. So it's good to have this knowledge and be able to explain it. So a sub-agent or sub-broker, I mean, it's referring to it as a broker, but the sub-agent is an agent who has a buyer, but they're not legally representing that buyer because they don't have a buyer's representation agreement signed. So if an agent brings a buyer and they don't have a buyer's representation agreement signed, they are then a sub-agent to the listing side. Okay, so their fiduciary duty is to the seller, and I'm not personally comfortable with that, because what ensures that they are going to act ethically and responsibly, upholding that fiduciary duty to the seller, meaning they can't disclose anything to that buyer that would assist the buyer in negotiating the price of the property. Okay, so study that, know that, just be familiar with it so that you can explain it to others. But here in the sub-agent field, let me type in here, let me remove the wording, and I want you to demonstrate that when you go to this field, if I were to type a 0, the system will not hold that 0. Okay, so first thing the class needs to know is in a numeric field, you have to hit the space bar first. Then when you type, the system will allow you to type into that space. Okay, but what they're going to find is typically, now I've made other edits to this document other than this, just this one field, but typically when you come in here, the save isn't highlighted. It's not clickable when you add that 0 just as a numeric 0. I'll click save. It might save it this time, but typically it does not. So my workaround is I can place my cursor in this field, hit the space bar, and I can actually type out the word 0. So I did that in the template and saved it. And I also added in NA for the dollar amount, because this row reads that we are paying, the broker represents the buyer, and they're going to get 3% of the sales price or a dollar amount. So the or dollar amount is not applicable because we're paying a percentage of the sales price, not a flat dollar rate. Okay, but you see both. Sometimes at this point, people will ask, well, what's this little part down here about the non-MLS brokers? It's good to explain this, because you will see this when agents go out into different areas and they want to do business. Say they're an Austin agent and they are representing a buyer who's purchasing a property in Killeen. And what happens is if that agent doesn't have MLS access in the Killeen area, their key won't work, and they don't have access to pulling comps and making sure that the pricing of the property is accurate. So that agent then begins asking the listing agent for a lot of favors on, can you open the door for us? Can you send me comps, etc. And then the listing agent is clued into the fact that, oh, this buyer's agent doesn't have MLS in our area. So let me refer back to my listing agreement. Am I paying a commission to somebody who doesn't have MLS? I've seen this listed as 0. And the agent, the buyer's agent, isn't finding out until the week of closing. Oh, by the way, just wanted to give you a heads up that you're not going to make a commission off of this sale, because in our MLS and on my listing agreement, my agreement is that I'm not paying an agent who doesn't have MLS access. And you didn't know that because you didn't have MLS access to see that information in the MLS. Okay, so be careful with your representation, make sure that you have all of the tools you need to fully represent that buyer. Now, a good broker would come back and say, yeah, but this talks about broker representation, and I, as the broker, have MLS access in that area. So, oh, by the way, you will be paying me a commission, and it's my choice on splitting that with my agent. Okay, so a good broker is going to go to bat for you if they have MLS access in that area. But be discussing this with your broker. Find out what areas they have MLS access in, and be aware of this section. Okay. All right, so we just looked at inserting clauses. How can you put 0 in the numeric field and it will actually hold it and save that? Okay, we looked at IntelliCopy and highlights. Let's see, strikeout. You can mention strikeout. I don't really like to get into it in this class, but I think what's important for an agent to remember is you're only allowed to strike out on a document that you are a party to. So if you're not signing that document, meaning if I'm not a buyer or seller, I'm not signing the 1 to 4 family contract. Therefore, I should not strike out anything on the 1 to 4 family contract. I should allow my client to, but I should not. Okay, so, and if they have more questions, they need to talk to their broker about that. Here at the top right-hand side is where I have my option for more. Just remember that depending on the resolution or size of your screen, this more could fall earlier in the list or later in the list. That's all specific to your actual screen size on your computer. I'm going to click more on my screen, and I want to talk real quick about adding photos. I love this option. This one's fairly new, but adding photos, the best example is to explain it in relation to a non-realty items addendum. I'm not going to open up that form, but I do want to mention, how many times have you seen a non-realty items addendum where for the refrigerator, they put refrigerator in kitchen? Okay, well, how many times have you also seen the listing agent go in and change the refrigerator that is in the kitchen? Because you didn't specify the make and model or the serial number of that refrigerator, I can switch it out to a different refrigerator, and that's now the refrigerator in the kitchen. Oh, but it's not the pretty stainless steel double door fancy refrigerator that they wanted. So now I, as the buyer's agent, might be buying a refrigerator as a closing gift for my client because they're upset that they didn't get the refrigerator they wanted. So why not go and take a picture of the refrigerator, take a picture of the serial number, and attach that to the non-realty items addendum? Okay, super easy to do, very professional, looks great. You can say, see photos attached, and here you go. That also works well for items that are difficult to describe. If they have some funky yard art or something else that the client might want to convey, add a picture. Okay, super cool. And the last item that I'm going to talk about on this screen is going to be our lookup field manager. So right here is where we have our lookup field manager, and the field manager, what the field manager does is it manages the information in the drop-down menus. So when I click on a row, and at the end of that row, I have a drop-down menu, I can clear out that drop-down menu if I have some old email addresses, some typos, or something that I want to clear from that field. This lookup field manager allows me to clear out specific fields. So I can go to this window, our lookup field manager. I can go up here to the field options and select a field that I want to clear. Okay. What people are going to mention at this point is, oh, okay, this looks awesome, looks like a great idea, but these abbreviations of the field names are not super clear as to what we're doing here, what field I'm managing. So S2 is seller to email. You notice that you can lock and unlock fields, and then here's your option to clear that field. Okay, and save. All right, so that will clear out that field so that you can just kind of start over with what the system, the data that the system is remembering. That works great when an agent has had his change of brokers, or maybe they have a misspelling in a field. All right, so the system has been saving periodically for me. So up here at the top, notice my save is not highlighted. The system has already saved. And I'm going to use my green back button here at the top left. All right, so the next step in this portion of class is to start sending for e-signature. There is a separate video for sending documents for e-signature, so check that one out next. Thanks for watching.